Hello, beautiful, and welcome to the podcast where we're moving the conversation forward about the choices you make in your daily life. I'm your host, Monica Cox, and I'm here right alongside of you, learning, growing, observing, and trying to make better choices consciously and subconsciously. Together, we're going to become better versions of ourselves and have raw, honest, open conversations about the things that truly affect our lives. And maybe, just maybe, finally get to a place where everyone else's BS doesn't trigger us. Like, here we go. Like, this was a conversation we had about like civilizations dying off, and then you had like the people evolving, and then the like kind of more or less evolved people were the ones who rise out of the ashes. Well, okay, surely there's got to be a point, a small period of time of those who are uninvolved that are just going to go through a shit show because they don't have people around them or are unwilling to listen to people around them like, hey, if you live in your shit, you're gonna die because of diseases.
Right.
So I
And
wonder if that's
full
what happened.
circle, it was the females of society that were like, if I just have one more baby, it'll be the one that remembers what sewer systems are.
So it doesn't actually have to be the Messiah. It just has to be someone who's
I
a
have to
little
be an
switched on.
engineer.
Yeah, it's such a fascinating thing to think about and apply to what we're going through now, what we're watching evolve
Yeah.
now, and just go, okay, I do think there's enough Messiah-ish people on the planet to um derail extinction. There's
Yeah.
enough of us who have like woke up and like, hey, that the way we're going is not sustainable
Yeah.
as a
I was gonna
human.
ask you, like, you know how we have this like saying, especially now because it's end times, that the sheep are waking?
Mm-hmm.
That the whole idea of like the flock is what is your thoughts around this in this like era of like end times and whatever of what it looks like? Because from my understanding, right, like I think about just like the archetype of like the shepherd, right? There aren't in one small section of space 20,000 shepherds. There's like 20,000 sheep
Mm-hmm.
and one or two shepherds.
Yeah.
And yet there's this whole like revolution of our planet that we must all become the shepherd. Like the
Well,
sheep must awaken and become the shepherd. Is that, or am I misunderstanding this
I don't,
idea of the sheep are waking?
yeah, I don't really know that concept, but what comes to me is that I don't think all the sheep have to become shepherds. I think the sheep just need to wake the fuck up and
To the
like
fact
take
that
some
they're being led,
yeah,
or
just to take accountability. You could still be led, you could still be supported and guided into areas, but like look up, look left and right, then take a bite of grass, then look up again, like I don't you would you need so many different levels of society to function.
yeah,
If you all were engineers, we would be naked. There'd be no clothes, right? There would be no
right,
food grown. There'd be, we
right.
need different levels of awareness.
Mhm.
I think if um I mean, just I don't know what would happen if 50% of humanity right now consciously awoke. And I'm not saying into the same belief system, but
Mhm.
into the knowledge that the way we're treating the planet isn't healthy. The way we're treating our bodies isn't healthy. The way we're treating our fellow human beings isn't healthy. I think it would be too much. I think most
Mhm.
people. you know, and let's just say whether whether you think people don't want to work or you think people are realizing that working in the cubicle for 10 hours a day is not mentally
Yeah.
sustainable, what happens to our society? And I think we've seen this with entrepreneurs. We had this huge, like, everyone be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Well, who's going to work for you if everyone's an entrepreneur?
Right. Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
so I do think there's this level of recognizing um where you want to be, what actually makes you happy. Like, my husband is not an entrepreneur. He looks at me, he's like, I don't even get it. Like, he likes to be told what to do, right?
Yeah.
Which we're loosening that up a little bit. Like, I'm like, you don't need to be told everything. But, so I think you just need those different people in that environment, and going back to that message I said to you about the human design architects, like, what
Yeah.
would it look like if you were aware of the strengths of your community
Mhm.
and decided to be like, "Okay, I know even though I want to do that, I know you're better
Mhm.
at that, and I'm gonna find what I'm really good at, and we're just gonna, like, rock the shit out of this."
Right.
And
Yeah.
almost taking a step back from ego, because I do think
100%.
I feel like I was trapped into every ego situation you could possibly do in the society, motherhood, entrepreneurship, wife, all that. I thought that I wanted a certain thing because of my programming around me my whole life. Um, and to unravel that and be okay. I said it last night. People always ask, like, how's your business doing? How's your business doing? And for so many years, I was so embarrassed to be like, well, I'm not hitting, 20K months yet. So my business sucks. And now I'm like, yeah, it's fucking awesome. Like, I design
Yeah.
it around my life. I pay my bills. I do the
Mhm.
things that I want to do. I'm in a like I don't even wanna say lucky because I don't think I'm lucky. I've worked really hard to be in this 20-year plus relationship with my husband, and I've
Yeah.
supported him to be the breadwinner,
Yeah.
right? And that's okay.
Right.
This whole feminism, like, well, and trust me, there's still a little bit of me that's just like, well, if shit hits the fan, you better have a backup plan, and that's not just like
Yeah.
divorce
Yeah.
or leaving, like
You're
that's
right.
death as well, like you still have to
Mhm.
think about these things.
Right.
But I think for a lot of people, it's deprogramming themselves to believe that they have to be the shepherd,
Mm.
that they have to be the Messiah, that they have to change the world. Because the reality is, if you just change yourself and
Yeah.
focus on
It's
you,
enough.
it's enough because it ripple effects.
Yeah.
The people
100%.
who feel it will feel it. They'll change themselves and it will get bigger and bigger. These
Yes.
whole people who just want, and it's like, there's no judgment. I Going back, I truly feel there's only a few messiahs at a time
Mhm.
in the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in our society, we've been duped into thinking everyone needs to be a messiah.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
I think about how I like structure my like courses and my like students, and there is not every course that I teach is about creating the next me.
Mhm.
Like, there is a place for that. There is definitely an avenue where you can work with me, and I will teach you how to become the next me.
Mhm.
Not, necessarily doing everything the way I do it, but I'm going to teach you the skills that I know. I'm going to teach you the knowledge that I know. I'm going to get you as best prepared without you having to go and do all of the education and all of the things that I had to do and all of the pain. I'm going to allow you to stand on my shoulders happily, and I will thrust you into the stratosphere so that you can get all of the blessings and be able to take my work even further in your own sphere, becoming the quote unquote next me. But I would say that is 1% of who I teach. and I actively don't look for that every single time that I'm, you know, like teaching somebody. More often than not, I'm teaching people just how to have this better understanding of who they are in their individuality, in their bodies, in their intuitive abilities, so that they can live the best life that they possibly can be. That has nothing to do with them going and becoming the next medical intuitive master healer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, they'll learn skills, yes, they'll be able to do some incredible things, but they're not going to be at quote unquote like my level, just because they don't even want that.
Yeah.
They just
Yeah.
want to know how to like live their best life, and their best life doesn't require them to know psychic surgery. You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't. So I'm not going to teach them that,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So yeah, and I think they're like you said, I 100% agree. There's too many people in society that are like, you know, create the next bigger and better version of you, or, even to the extent of, teaching beyond you so that they are this like prodigy or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm like, 99% of your population shouldn't be that, because that would be obscene,
Yeah. I
absolutely
mean,
obscene.
maybe on a different planet, it would be, like,
Maybe.
awesome, but the way I feel like our society is set up, it is that, you know, you have to have someone collect the garbage.
Mhm.
And,
And
okay,
be happy about it.
maybe a messiah can collect the garbage, you know? Like,
Yeah.
I truly believe that. I think that no matter what your abilities are, you still take a shit. You still have to clean up after yourself. You still have to do all these human things that
Yeah.
we signed up for. Um, but yeah, I think that's the downfall. I think that could be one of the big downfalls of our society is that whole American dream.
Okay, so I was just thinking, I was like, Eastern culture doesn't seem to have this like same issue as the West does, because the West doesn't have, or the West has this idea of the American dream. Everybody should become special.
Mhm.
Whereas in the East, like, we see things like the Dalai Lama, right? Like, we see people venerating the Buddha. Special people, not everyone, not everybody is capable of reaching or being held to such a level,
Mhm.
but there is one or two, probably no more than three, where, certainly not in a generation or at a time, that deserve such a status. And they don't have any problem with that. They're like, yeah, yeah, no, not everybody can be the
Yeah.
Dalai Lama. There's only one.
Well, and I think everyone's just naturally special and
Mhm,
and tapping into just feeling that worthiness, feeling that love, feeling that being special for doing what you chose to come here to do,
mhm,
right? And I just think it's that whole prefrontal cortex bullshit that just has messed a lot of people up, but I know I got sucked into it, and I think most people get sucked into it. And it is taking that step back and going like, "Okay, what do I truly want?" And I think when you bring it back to entrepreneurship, yes, I think there's outliers. Yes, I think people get lucky, go viral, all that kind of stuff. But
mhm,
the hard fact for most people is, what does it actually look like to run $1 million business? It's
mhm.
fucking hard.
Yes.
It's hard to set up. Is it
Yes.
hard to keep running? Potentially not,
Mhm,
but, and I think people have just been sold this, like, sack of lies. Motherhood's easy. Marriage is easy. Even friendships and family dynamics and running a business and working for someone, they're all challenging to do right in this society.
yes. Yeah, to do well, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I don't think we give ourselves enough credit
For
for
real.
like allowing ourselves to go through the motions of just subsisting, and like there's a lot of friends that I have, a lot of acquaintances that I have who are or who want to, I should say, like be in this like entrepreneurial situation. And they they are like upset by the fact that it's hard. And I'm continue to tell them, I'm like, it's okay that it's hard and it's okay that you're struggling. There's actually nothing wrong with that. It's essential actually to be able to do that.
Sorry about that. I'll edit
Yeah.
that out.
No, 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 you're good.
Um, yeah. So I wanted to ask you something to wrap it up. Um, okay. So what do you think, pulling in multiple directions we went in this conversation?
No, I love
Um,
it. I was like, oh my God, where are we going next? I love this. Oh, here we go. Sightseeing through this whole conversation.
or totally. It's yeah. We will maybe one day stick to one theme, but not today.
Doubtful.
Let's The average person, which we all are,
Mhm.
right?
Right,
Moving
right.
through this rock, moving through this universe. It's just nuts. In these kind of doom days, right? Because let's just face it, we are coming to a natural end to a crazy cycle. We are shifting. Whatever that shift looks like will be determined. But for me, I'm in the space of like becoming the ultimate observer. Like you said, like taking a step back, listening, not responding right
Yeah.
away, observing those things. But what is the advice? I know this isn't an advice like podcast, it's just us really talking shit, but like
Happily, happily
um
talking shit.
like if you do have someone who's like, okay, I've listened to you guys, but I'm still like so scared about what's happening in the future. What is
Mm,
your best advice of how you're trying to move through and how you are moving through these things to
mm.
someone who maybe doesn't feel as secure as you in this kind of evolution?
The snarky answer, the snarky,
Yes. Yeah.
the
Give it
snarky
to
answer
us,
I have
girl.
is get the fuck over it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'll explain that really quickly before I give like a real answer. Is because like you can't control everything. You can barely control yourself on a good day. And if you're constantly inundated with these thoughts of like needing to become the most prepared, the most settled, the most perfect, the most advanced, the most healed, whatever, right? Insert X here, then you're going to drive yourself crazy because you're never going to meet it. You're never going to get to yourself to a space where you can kill the ego, where you can, sit in absolute silence and like see the perfection of the universe for more than 3 seconds. It's not that you can't achieve it. It's in just, can you achieve it? And like subsist there where you're drinking in prana through your through your crown chakra and you stop breathing because you no longer need air, that
Or food
it's
or water.
right, exactly. Or sex or any, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like all the good things. So
Save that for the messiahs. They can have that life.
right. Yeah, like you're gonna drive yourself crazy. So give yourself a little grace and like get the fuck over it. That's the snarky answer. No, maybe more evolved answer. Maybe that was the more evolved answer. For me would be Start with just taking a breath and taking a step back.
Mhm.
And, like, work on being less reactive to the things that matter the most to you. The little things, like the things that don't really matter to you, you're not gonna you've already this is how I look at it. You've already perfected it with the things that you couldn't give two craps about.
Mhm. Yeah.
Try to bring that sort of mentality into the space where you actually give all the fucks in the world. Your family, your friends, your children, your spouse, your home. If you can release that level of expectation around everything, you things that scare you, your death, for example, right? Like, I don't actually fear death, but like if you do, right? Especially since we're talking about end of times. um, Try to find a way to like honor who you are and the things that you want to do, and then let it go. You know, if you want to have babies, have babies. If you want to get married, get married. You know, and I a lot of people will listen to that and they'll say, "You're making this like so easy. Like you're making it sound like it's just so easy." Yeah, and why not?
Mhm.
Go out to a bar, pick somebody up. You might be surprised. You know
True.
what I mean? Like you might be surprised. Um, try to have a good life. I think we get in our own way so often,
Mhm.
all because we put way too much emphasis on the things that we give way too much like oomph on. But what happens if we can release the grip a little bit and say, you know
Yeah.
what, if I died today, does it really matter? Like, have I not lived goodest, goodest best life? you
Yeah. Yeah. And do you think
know?
that comes with an element though of understanding why you get triggered? Like where those triggers come from?
I think that there's a space where you don't have to know everything.
Yeah.
Which anybody who knows me is like, Abigail, what the hell? Who are you? Because I'm usually that person like, dig, bitch, figure it out.
Yeah.
Figure it out so that you're well aware. But lately I'm coming to this thought that, yeah, is it helpful to know? Yeah. I'm always going to be that person that feels like it's way more helpful for me to know, and I do want to know, and I make efforts to know. M But I think that you can do the work and release that grip without having to know every single trigger and why and what was the trauma. I
Yeah.
think you can find a place of peace in your head and in your heart around things and not have to know all those answers. And I
Yeah.
think for some people, for a lot of people, that's actually where they need to be going because they're actually creating a lot of like stress inside of their body by trying to figure out every single thing.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
So if you're that person, if hearing me say that like triggers you, and you're like, oh, she's speaking to me, then just stop trying to figure it out.
Yeah. I feel like there's conscious things that you know trigger you and you're aware of. And if you can move through those conscious things with whatever modality is that suit you, emotional freedom tapping, Psyche, working with,
Mm-hmm.
energy healer, whatever it is, I think if you can move through those bigger ones and get rid of that conscious like connection, the
Hmm.
stuff that comes up subconsciously, you're like, well, I don't have to figure it out because I have this modality. I could just surrender and let go of this bullshit and move on.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Where
Yeah.
I think I know I got sucked into it is like, I need to know why. Like, where did this come from?
Mhm.
And now I'm like, I don't give a fuck where it came from. It's gone. Like,
Just like yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And I think
for
that's
sure.
a like there's an energetic healing like modality called theta healing that really like kind of does it. They're like, okay, it can exist on like one of four different levels, or or a multitude of those four levels, and you have to you whether you have two different ways. You can either dig and figure it out, like where it is and why it's there, or what most people do with theta healing is that they're like, well, it doesn't really matter which level it's on. We're going to clear all the levels for it, and
Yeah.
we're not actually going to like dig around for
Mhm.
like the why and the how and all that shit.
Yeah.
So,
Because it doesn't
you know,
really matter if you
no,
subconsciously
yeah.
don't, if that's a subconscious thing,
Mhm.
yeah, it doesn't matter for sure. And you don't have to talk it
Mhm.
out. And like I think that's obviously where the talk therapy just falls so dramatically short,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
So
Yeah.
let yourself breathe. Let yourself breathe. Give yourself grace. And just simply like, and this is one of the reasons I love that this podcast is called Choices, like simply make the best choices for you.
Yeah, for
At the end
sure.
of the day, that's literally all that it is. It's not about trying to find some cookie cutter thing that like you can tailor made make to you. Just live your best life. When you get tired of your own bullshit, you'll stop.
Yeah.
You'll
A
stop. I promise you.
100%, man. 100%. And I think that's like a good mantra to like just keep in your brain. Like every time the bullshit keeps happening, you could just say, "Well, I'll get sick of this one day and I'll move. I will. I
Mhm,
will." And then
mhm.
eventually you will shift.
Yes.
And then if not, well, fucking good luck with that one. Uh,
If
like,
those
oh,
people aren't listening to this podcast,
no, they're
they're not listening.
definitely
They're not listening to that.
they have not made it to the end of this episode. All right, my friend. Once again, always such a pleasure. It absolutely sets my soul on fire to talk with you. And all your links are down in the show notes if anyone wants to connect with you. And until next time.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much again for joining us here on Choices. You can go ahead and leave a 5-star review because we're all friends here. But if you really want to move the conversation forward, please connect with us on our social media accounts, which you can find the links below. Have a beautiful week, and we'll see you next time here on Choices.